If you're an artist who's a printmaker as well as a painter, this video is for you. I love both media of expression. Printmaking gives me unpredictability, and painting, in a way, gives me a little bit more control. So combining the both is my ideal way of expression. I'm going to show you how you can use a collagraph plate and monoprinting techniques together to create a very expressive way of printmaking. I'm also going to show you how you can create really colourful and very interesting chine colle papers to add another way of adding depth and texture into your finished artwork. I'm going to include all of the materials and tools in my description, but if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to ask me in comments. So I've done a series of landscape studies, mini sketches, and what I really love about, well, I picked this one, there was several, and I like the composition, and I like the colors, and I like the sort of red poking through a little bit. So I'm going to try to translate that into a intaglio print. It's going to be a monoprint, a collagraph specifically. And the reason why I'm going to translate it into a print, because I'm interested in recreating this in a very, very different media. So I guess I just want to explore this sketch further by using a very different technique, by not painting, but trying to recreate the feel of it. But because I'm going to use such different media, it's going to be very different. So first of all, I have started just with a general sketch on a tracing paper, because obviously printmaking is in reverse. So I'm going to then be able to sort of reverse it and be able to see where the main areas are. I want to replicate, I could just do it like this and end up with a mirror image, but as it happens, I want to sort of replicate what's here. So I've traced it with the main sort of areas of interest, and I'm going to use this is just a little bit of mounting board I have left over when I was doing when I was mounting one of my prints, and I've chosen a matte board. And the reason why I've chosen a matte board, because I want to start from mid-tone. So matte board, when inked art board, is going to show me mid-tone. It will eventually, gradually start getting paler the more I print, because it will get sealed with ink. But what I'm going to do is essentially I'm going to make this board using this kind of template in reverse. I'm gonna create lots and lots of texture by overlaying different collage papers, sticking things on, using pastes and gels, etc. I have video about using pastes and gels, and I also have a video about using making collage papers for collagraphs, so you can refer back to those videos. But essentially I'm just going to basically make lots of texture on this plate. After I have done the texture, I'm going to monoprint by just laying ink on by brush, or with a color shaping tool, with wiping some ink off, and by using chine colle. So the idea is trying to recreate these red areas as sort of a spice color. So I'm going to start adding some textures to my plate. So I'm starting this aluminium foil, which is quite nice because the actual plate is matte. So I'm adding some very light areas first of all, and this is very smooth, shiny, so obviously shiny surface will wipe the ink clean. So I'm kind of going off my sketch, my rough sketch, and adding my light areas here, just doing some the first sort of before the proof print. That first bit is really just creating basic shapes. So here this is just a print labeling paper, and it's matte as well. So I'm sort of layering on top of the layers almost. I'm kind of working blind, but also using my sketch. This is one of the collage papers that I created in my previous video, which I provided a link for, and it was just using some mark making tools on a paste. I believe it was gel, matte, heavy body gel. So here is just to add some textures again, and this was mica flakes on glued onto that labeling paper again, so it just sticks on. And here I believe that collage paper was created using some other paste, molding paste, with some mark making tools. I'm kind of tucking it underneath, as I'm not really that bothered about the borders here, the clean borders. And this was using beading gel on top of some acrylic medium paste again. And this is another collage paper which used one of my stencils. This aluminium foil has been a little bit creased, so that should provide me some really nice textures. And again, I'm just adding some more layers and shapes. This is just using the just plain labeling paper, and this is micaceous iron oxide paint on top of the labeling paper, which will create me a really lovely dark texture. So again, I'm just adding the dark areas and light areas and textured areas, just roughly going off my sketch. And I want a lot of textures in my sky, so that's why I've added this is a soft gel glass, which I'm applying now with color shaping tool. And the reason why I'm doing it is because I'm adding some lighter tones. Everything's going to be pretty dark here, so I just needed to lighten it up and create some more textures. Again, working blind here, I don't really know what it will be like, and I will probably change it many times after my proof print and other prints. And again, I'm adding this semi-gloss medium with a brush, so I'm getting some brush strokes, interesting brush strokes. This is extra heavy body matte medium, acrylic medium, and here I'm using a color shaper just to add even more texture. So this is not as glossy. This is going to be matte, and it's going to absorb a little bit of the ink when I'm inking up later on. But again, I'm just adding some more interesting textures. So the plate is ready. I've decided to get my red marked out on a sketch just to sort of know my mirror image, as it will get confusing to know when the red areas are going. And I'm just pushing the ink in using scrim as I'm sort of applying ink in just designated areas. So I'm referring, as you can see, I'm referring to my sketch and just choosing my colors. Really, you should do a proof print with black only, but I've decided I wanted to already experiment with color here. So I'm using Aqua Intaglio inks to sort of get my proof print, but already with color, because I'm really interested to see how this is going to work with these particular colors. So just wiping the ink off now. I've inked up. I'm wiping the ink off to make the plate ready for print. And I'm sort of in some areas smudging the ink, blending it, just really seeing what I can really do to create texture and atmosphere and mood in the final in the proof print. And really, I'm going to learn really how all the textures will actually show up. So I'm not expecting this print to look great, but obviously this will be a really good indicator of what I need to do. So the print is obviously very pale because I didn't use any black at all, but it's really good to see the basic shapes that have been set out. This is not a very good actually image, but that has given me an idea, and I am now adding some more collage papers to try to sort of improve the plate and get a better quality image. So this is the micaceous iron oxide papers, and here I'm just adding some more collage papers again. I've covered that area. As you can see, there's some collage paper just below the bit that I'm sticking. Just added some other textured paper. I've had to really wait for this plate to dry and clean it very thoroughly before I did all that. Otherwise it just wouldn't stick. This is a wall adhesive, wall tile adhesive, which is a fantastic, very absorbent medium to put on a plate. So it will print very dark, but it will give me some interesting textures. So I'm adding here a bit of scrim mark making, which should give me some nice sort of texture on top of this wall tile adhesive before it dries, has a chance to dry. This is a regular gel semi-gloss, and after the wall tile adhesive dried, I'm adding it to lighten it up. I don't want it to be too dark, so this is the reason why I'm adding it on top. So instead of the red ink on the plate, I decided to pre-prepare my paper with some shellac acrylic ink. And I'm using acrylic ink is because I don't want it to come off when I'm wetting paper. I'm also making more chine colle papers. This is rice paper, and again I'm using acrylic ink as I don't want it obviously to run when it gets wet. So I'm going to add these chine colle papers later on. So that sort of idea is just come up to me. And this time I'm inking up black first because I want more contrast. It was too light. I need some darker tone first. So I'm wiping ink off quite a lot. I don't want there to be too much black because I want to add other inks. And so here I'm adding ink with a small roller in batches kind of thing. I've added some white. I've got some opaque white aqua ink. And I'm adding quite generously here. So sort of monoprinting on top of this plate essentially. Then applying some darker inks, blending them a little bit. Again, not really sure how this is going to work out, but we shall see. And also how it's going to work out with that red acrylic ink I've added to my actual paper. It's difficult to see how the light ink is going to print on the dark ink. So this is a little bit of an experiment. But yeah, it will be very interesting to see. So this is another proof print. I still don't know if the plate is quite ready. And I'm just wiping ink off using an edge of paint newsprint to give me a nice crisp edge. So yeah, this is really just to see if I'm happy with the plate, but also playing around with colors. I could have done it black and white as a proof print, but I am being very impatient, and I do want to play around with colors and have an experiment as well. Using a cotton bud, I want to expose the areas that have a red ink, acrylic ink on the paper, because I really want it to show through. If I have too much ink on a plate, they will be obscured by the ink on the plate. As you can see, the red acrylic doesn't run on the paper when wetted. So that is good news. It's a really good sort of little trick. So I've run it through the press with my wetted 300 GSM paper, and I do really love how the red shows through. It's really nice. It's a much better way, I think, to get the red. But I'm not 100% happy, and I'm going to change the plate. So this is the stencil I created a while ago using some shapes from nature. and I'm using extra heavy body acrylic matte medium. So I've peeled off that sort of blobby shape I had in the front, and I'm just going to ink up again. So again, I've inked up black first, and I'm just adding ink with a paintbrush now, and making more painterly marks rather than doing it with a roller. So it's something different. So I really like that sort of dark blue, that shape that's come up here. So I'm being a bit more painterly, monoprint sort of on top with a paintbrush rather than the roller. It's shaping up quite nicely, and I'm liking this. This is the Aqua ink, which is the runny ink, the liquid ink, which is really nice actually for monoprinting. Bit of blending, a lot more blending of inks here on this plate, and I'm just wiping the areas that again I want the red to show through. So as you can see, all the silver foil has been wiped off, as I'm very keen to get those lovely red acrylic inks to show through on my paper. The front part of the foreground is looking quite good now. I quite like that. So here is my chine collé on a rice paper I made before. I got it nicely wet, and I'm going to put some starch powder, which is a really good way to stick the chine collé to the paper. So I'm putting the powder face up because obviously I want that to. This is my plate already on a press bed. I want it to stick to the paper, and this is my paper inked up with acrylic ink, and that chine collé paper should nicely stick to my wetted paper. So here we go, the big reveal. The wet paper picks up the starch powder really well, and it glues it really solidly. It's quite strong gluing technique for chine collé. Here we go. It's looking, I've got some lovely contrasts here. The foreground is really nice. That ink and the chine collé worked out beautifully. Really happy with that. But I decided to add another chine collé. And this is the plate. Again, sorry, this is not actually a plate. This is my print. So I need to put the chine collé the other way around, the starchy glue way down. And I'm going to actually do something weird here. I'm going to put my collagraph plate on top. I haven't inked it up. It's basically a ghost. So I'm printing a ghost from the previous print on top of this print with a chine collé paper, because I'm quite keen to get some texture on top of that chine collé paper. That's quite an interesting way. It got a little bit sticky, unfortunately. I think it's because I managed to get a bit of that starch powder on top. But it's okay. It wasn't too bad. I managed to smooth it all out, and it worked out okay. And actually, it looks pretty good. It came out very interesting. I really like it. It was unexpected the way it came out, to be honest, but it's really cool. So here it is. Lots of interesting points. I really am quite pleasantly surprised how this chine collé worked out. The highlight is really bright. That's quite surprising, actually. I didn't expect that. Lots of really nice textures at the front, which I really like. And the background red came up really nicely. And I like the sort of muted sky that still has some texture there. So all in all, much better plate, I think. a bit more sort of working together a little bit better than it was before. So yeah, I'm going to do one more, and I think that will be it. So just to recap, I started off with a proof print, a colour proof print, that sort of showed me the main areas that I wanted to focus on. Then I moved on to a second print, changing sort of the way I've inked up, and I realised that I needed to perhaps change the plate slightly. There were some changes done already in the second one, but the third one really, I think, is probably my most favourite of all. I have changed the bottom part of the plate. I wasn't very keen on that sort of shape down there, so I unified the foreground, and I quite like what's going on here with this part, and that chine colle has provided me a really nice focal point and some very interesting texture. The background with the orange ink has created a really, really lovely sort of three-dimensional feel. And lastly, there's two chine colles here. They are not as bright as this one, but you can just about see them. I've incorporated them here on both sides. There's one here and there's one here. I really love this sort of gentle light coming through the path. That's was my orange ink background. So all in all, there's the last two prints I'm very happy with, and I will certainly use them, and it was very useful exercise of printing the first two and finding sort of my way with them. So yeah, that's it.